It's just another biz op trying to take people's money. And we can see that almost going to the next level now with AI.
Yeah, it's like now you don't even have to write the copy. Just press a button and make 10K, right?
Yeah, it's moving towards the ultimate fantasy. And of course, that's not the reality of things, no matter how many people try to tell you otherwise. So you need to be getting better. And as well as that, I think it's more important than ever to understand the bigger picture. The gentleman recently asked me when I slated the Andrew Huberman type threads, and he said, it gives you traffic. It does, but is it the right traffic? You can have 2 million people looking at something. If they're not interested in what you're selling, it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, I'd love to know your take on like where you think the industry is going. What else are you seeing that's becoming really popular, and where you think copywriters should focus their energy?
I think it's difficult to predict the future and exactly what's going to happen, but I would always just focus on...
All right, everyone. So here I am with Andrew Gould, today's guest. I'm so excited that you're here, man. I really, really appreciate you taking me up on the invitation, because I know you've generated a lot of money for your clients. You've got like over 100 and something million dollars of results in client results. You've worked in a lot of different niches. You've also built up a large following on X. I think it's like 37,000 right now. So, you're doing a lot of really cool stuff in the space, and yeah, really looking forward to learning a bit from you and learning, how you've done what you've done and how other people can benefit as well.
Cool. Thank you for hosting me, Matthew. I'm glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to sharing what I've discovered over the years.
Yeah. When did you get started? You got started like a long time ago, right?
Yeah, with the copywriting thing. It was back in 2009 on there. But I mean, we can go back even further to when I really started, because I got into martial arts like as a teenager, and then I'd buy these martial arts magazines. Now these magazines are terrible. All the articles are terrible, but the adverts were amazing. I thought these were the greatest things I've ever read. It's like the John Carlton style, the hyper-aggressive copy in them. And I'd just read those over and over again. But, I never thought anything beyond, I like them. And then I went away to university, in the late 90s, so I got access to the internet for the very first time. And then from there, I joined like different email groups. So yeah, because there's not really forums back then. It's all done through email, and we're chatting about martial arts. So someone says, oh, I hate those Dan Kennedy style adverts. And I'm like, Dan Kennedy, there's a name I can look up. And it's like, you don't hate them, they're amazing. But so I thought, I Googled I didn't Google Dan Kennedy. Google wasn't a thing back then. It's like I Yahooed Dan Kennedy to find out who this guy was. And I get a thing saying, give me your email address and I'll send you a 12-week course on copywriting. So I thought, I didn't really know anything about it. Never even heard of this thing, giving someone your email address. So I did that. Then over the next 12 weeks, I learned about this thing called copywriting, direct response copywriting, to be more specific. And it fascinates me. Because, the idea that it sounds obvious now, but, the words you use can have such a huge impact on whether people buy or not, and that you can measure it. You can see how many people see an advert, then how many people buy, and you can test different, and it all appealed to me. So I thought, well, this is really fascinating. But that was about it, because, I was at university, I was doing an accounting degree. Of course, you might say, that's no surprise, Andrew. You couldn't look like more of an accountant if you tried. So, okay. And as well as that, I just started writing online. I'm a bit of a film nerd. So I started writing film reviews. I built my own website, taught myself HTML. And on GeoCities, I got myself a free website and started writing film reviews. Then fast forward to the end of my degree, I decided accounting is not for me. It was mind-numbingly boring. So into the workplace, and I just took on a series of entry-level jobs, really. I cleaned toilets, worked in supermarkets, worked on building sites, pushed leaflets through doors, nothing particularly, interesting. And then a camera shop opened locally, and they wanted a salesman. Now, I was timid, nervous, wouldn't say boo to a goose, but it was indoors and it was regular hours. So I thought, that sounds like a job for me. So, I applied to it. I turned out I got the job, I thought it was because I did a good interview, but later the manager told me I was the only person that applied. So, never mind. Yeah.
Okay.
And
nice.
then, like on the first day, the panic's hitting me. I don't like to talk to people. I'm nervous. And then the guy who sent to train me, who'd worked at another shop before, he's like, all you got to do is walk up to people, ask them what they want, and then show them which camera will get them what they want. And I thought, that sounds easy. And so, without any other training, something in me just clicked. I just went and did it. And obviously, I didn't know what cameras were at that point, so I was asking for help all the time. And it turned out I was rather good at it. And over the years, I became the top salesman in there. Then I became like the top salesman regionally. And everything was going fine. And I think, I've got a career here. I've at last found something I can do. And then, it's like the 2008 financial crash hits. and suddenly the business is in a bad place. They'd overexpanded massively. And of course, 2008, it's the rise of the, oh, I was going to have a look at my phone here. It's the rise of the phone that people are now using to take pictures with. They're not using cameras anymore. And so the business was in trouble. And it says, basically, we're firing everybody. And you can either take redundancy or you can reapply for your job. And the first thing, well, I'll reapply for my job. And then I thought, hang on a second, I can take the redundancy money and maybe try something else. I thought back, hang on, I remember that Dan Kennedy bloke who was teaching me about copywriting. And I remember the definition of copywriting that stuck with me. Copywriting was salesmanship in print. Well, hang on, I've just been pretty good at sales. And as well as that, I've been writing for like over a decade. So I've got the in print part down as well.
So you're ready to go, yeah.
Yeah, everything kind of seemed like it was coming together. So I thought, well, let's have a look online, see if this is a thing people do. Because I genuinely didn't know anything. So, now I can use Google. Google's a thing. I go on there, look it up, and I discover, freelance copywriting. It is a thing. It's a popular thing. And I probably got a bit sucked into the hype with people, make 6 figures a year, even if you can't write a sentence and all that stuff. But I thought, I'll give it a go. What's the worst that can happen is I'll waste a year or two, then I'll just go back and find another sales job. So I ordered a few copywriting books. I ordered Dan Kennedy's Ultimate Sales Letter. I ordered the Richard Cialdini's Influence and a book by a guy called Richard Bayens on Words That Work, which is basically just a collection of words that are supposed to work better than others. I don't think I've ever used that book. It's still sitting in my drawer down there, like 16 years ago. And I gave it a go. I started posting online on the Warrior Forum. It's still a thing now, but it's a shadow of what it was back there. Yeah, it was a big thing. I started posting content on there, and after a few months, someone said, "Hey, I want a copywriter." So I said, "Hey, I can write copy," and he said, "Okay," and he sent me some money via PayPal, and I started writing copy, and that was kind of how everything got started for me.
It's amazing. Wow. So back on the Warrior Forum, those are the days. There's a few people that I know that got started there as well, and they always talk about it very fondly. It was like a very nice little community of internet marketers all having a good time. So there was also a whole bunch of clients on there too. Then, because I'm like more. I got started in like 2017, so like I wasn't in that world so much,
Man, you're still a noob.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. There were lots of big names in the industry there, and it was just a forum for anybody into internet marketing. So as well as the people being, experts and freelancers, there were clients, people who wanted help, and it was an amazing little hub for a good few years. I mean, it's cool. All forums pretty much have faded now, but it was a great place to be.
So that's how you got clients then in the early days, is you were using that group and that community, and then did you get referrals from there, and you started to build up like some how did you go about getting clients after you got that first one?
Yeah, the second client was pretty much exactly the same. It was a gentleman said he wanted a copywriter. I said, I'm a copywriter. And he offered me a 50% split on whatever money we made from his offer. Now, you see, the Andrew of today knows 50, that's a bit too good to be true, Andrew. You need to look into this a bit more. Back then, didn't know a thing. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And we ended up getting to know each other quite well. We spoke back and forth on Skype regularly, and I wrote the copy.
Yeah. Good times.
Yeah, I wrote the copy for his offer. We launched it, and it did 14% conversion rate.
Interesting.
Which, as he said, was the best he's ever done with any writer. He was amazed. And then suddenly I got a testimonial from him, hey, this guy's amazing. He's done this. And then he starts introducing me to other people. And that's when everything really took off for me.
Nice. Yeah. You need that first person to like nod their head and say you're really good. And once you get that first approval, then that's been my experience too. Like the doors open. Yeah.
It definitely is, because even if you say you've got all these results, in an industry like this where people maybe don't share anything, clients don't want you sharing everything, you can never really trust it if a guy says, I've done this for this, maybe. But when somebody gives you the nod, then it was a powerful endorsement. And from there, I've just basically worked on referrals and repeat clients. It's been a fairly lucky path for me, really. I've never had to go out begging for clients. I've never had to do any sort of cold outreach. I've just had people coming to me.
I mean, it's been my philosophy that that's the best way to do it. A lot of internet marketers will talk about referrals as hope marketing. Maybe you've heard them say it that way before, but it is a bit of a self-serving statement to say it's hope marketing, because they don't really want you to generate clients like that. They want you to generate clients from their ad course, like, so that's why they say that. But for me, I find that referrals is not hope marketing. Referrals is your service or your product speaking for itself. It's the best way to go, and I've got majority of my business from introductions and referrals and my community and network, in fact, even today, because I'm coaching many copywriters, I'd say like the number one way that I've got new clients, like new coaching students, is also from other coaching students telling their friends like, hey, I got coaching from Matthew. It was really, really good. I got this result. I recommend it to you too. I just personally think it's a way better way to go, especially in a business like ours where you only need like 2 or 3 projects at a time. You don't need to run a sales funnel where you don't need volume. You don't need volume. And at least I don't think so.
Yeah, you're right. I think too many people treat the service business as a product business.
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
the reality is, like you said, it's 2 different funnels. And yeah, it was only recently I heard people start saying, oh, you can't rely on referrals. Well, I have. Of course, I know plenty of other people who have. You just tried to, like you said, sell their system for whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So then you started on X, and now you've got a big following there. So how did that all come to fruition?
Yeah, it's kind of I'll just kind of continue my story, probably continue boring your listeners. But yeah, after I posted on the Warrior Forum and I'd got a few clients, I kind of faded away from it. I stopped posting because I was getting regular work. I didn't want to faff around, and the audience changed a little bit. It's like when I started, people were happy to have you tear their copy down. And then it seemed like after a couple of years, people were like, oh, leave it, don't say these nasty things. So I just stopped posting anywhere online. I went very much behind the scenes, and I was very happy doing that. And then about 2020 or so, a friend's like, oh, I'm posting on Twitter now. Why don't you get an account? And almost just to humour him, I signed up, got an account, followed him and a couple of other people, and I didn't really pay any attention to it. Then one day I was randomly checking out his photos or he posted, and I see a comment from an account called Rogue Wealth, and it was all about sales and online marketing. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't even cross my mind. I mean, I've got over a decade experience. I didn't realise people were using social media for business. So I see this thing where I click it, and I thought, oh, I'll follow this guy. And then from there, I got drawn into what at that point was known as money Twitter. It's kind of
money
marketing,
Twitter,
money Twitter, the corner of it where people are talking about copywriting, sales, things. And I can see, it's quite a popular little corner. There's some people who've got huge accounts. They're posting about it. And I think
I got sucked in too, by the way. Like I also got pulled into the money Twitter space for a while there. I haven't grown an account, but like I purchased some coaching from some guy that purchased some coaching from some other guy that purchased some coaching from some other guy. So at some point, somebody started this whole like growth thing. It's interesting, yeah.
Man, yeah, the Twitter growth thing or the X growth thing, that is just a pure pyramid scheme. Yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, I started to see that, oh man, this is a little community. And my first thought was, this isn't for me. These people are big personality types, who are doing it, or they're posting funny stuff, or they're just boasting about how much money they've made. I'm like, well, neither of those are me, but I'll watch it, I'll pay attention to it. And then I noticed there were a few smaller accounts, and these smaller accounts were just posting value and focusing on that. And I thought, well, that's something I could do, especially as most of the people in that space, or in any space, I suppose, it's beginners teaching beginners. So there was a lot of bad advice. A lot of people who didn't really know what they were talking about. They had a lot of confidence, but not much else. There, no skills or experience. So I thought about it. I thought, I think I could do this. I thought maybe I'll top out at a few thousand people, but, we'll see how it goes. So to start with, I just watched the space for a while. I saw who were the big accounts, who were the medium-sized accounts, and who were the smaller accounts. Then what type of thing does each person post? Who's posting the funny stuff, who's posting the content, what type of valuable content do they post? And I paid attention to all that to try to find a gap in the market I could fit myself into. And then I realised there was pretty much no veteran copywriter posting value, which was crazy, I thought, for a platform as big as Twitter. There was, a few people had accounts, like David Deutsch had an account, but at that time he wasn't posting. It's like John Carlton had an account but wasn't posting. Craig Clemens.
Yeah, no one's posting.
And I thought, so hang on, I can jump into this. I can be the value guy. And I did, I thought, I know what I'm like. I'll spend ages overthinking it. So just create an account quick, It's like, I created a quick account. I didn't even use a picture of myself to start with. I went on some like South Park image generator thing and just created a cartoon picture of myself. Although, disturbingly, it looked a little too similar to the real me for me to be that comfortable with. Then I just created, again, a quick bio, like I'm going to post about copywriting. And then I just started posting. I decided I'm going to post 3 times a day. I'm going to focus on giving as much value as possible in short. I'm not going to try stories. I'm not doing anything fancy. Just type value that I can't see other people doing. And I started posting, and it started to take off. And then I also made the decision I would reply to anybody who replied to me. Because again, it seems like once you get to a certain level, people stop replying to anyone who comments. And I thought, no, that's not going to be me. If somebody takes the time to say something to me, I'm going to speak back to them.
Nice.
And I think that helped because I could see I was a real person who was invested in this. And then I left valuable comments under bigger accounts. Now, this strategy almost seems to be being, laughed at a bit recently. Oh, you're the reply guy. And I'm like, well, yeah, I was the reply guy, and it worked because I wasn't replying for the sake of it. I was always taking whatever they'd said and expanding on it for them. And it immediately makes me say, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. This Andrew might know what he's talking about. Because he's just taken what was an advanced concept and added several more layers to it. And that helped. And as well as that, it had bigger accounts were suddenly reaching out to me, in the DMs. It was, hey, wow, like your stuff, brother, hey, And then I was getting reposted and that, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then, and this is going to sound a bit odd, but I didn't actively network. And kind of the point of that is not so much, I'm not telling people not to network, but I'm not a networker. It's not my strength. My strength was pumping out nerdy content, which I can do all day, every day. So I played to my strengths and just hammered home. And then, of course, this thing called Spaces pops. But I don't know if you've heard of a space on Twitter. But essentially what it is audio streaming, just an audio stream. When I describe it to my parents, I call it Twitter radio, as that's the easy way to think of it.
Okay, yeah.
And then somebody was like, do you want to speak on my space? And I thought, no, I'm terrified. But I said, yes, I do. And like the first time I did it, you can see my hands were shaking like that because I was so nervous. But it went well. And then I spoke on more spaces because, as a great saying I like is, live is legit. Okay, live is legit. If you're doing it, we're speaking live to an audience, you're answering questions, you're going back and forth in real time. There's nowhere to hide if you don't know what you're talking about or if things go wrong. Whereas, for anybody watching this, we could be speaking for 7 hours and you've just recorded, you just could click the parts that make me look normal. Yeah, so that well. And then I didn't pay any attention to my analytics. And again, as a direct response marketer, that's very, very odd. Of course, we live and die by the numbers. But, marketing is maths. But the trouble is, you can see the people who do pay attention to the analytics because they tend to jump on trends and they do what's working. And often that goes against your brand. For example, at the moment, if you want to get a load of engagement on social media, post about Andrew Huberman or Steve Jobs or Henry Ford, any big figure like that, and you'll get a lot of engagement. But it's not building your brand. It's not got anything to do with what you want it to do. And then, you end up chasing these trends and it moves further and further away from what you're actually on there for. So I was stubborn. I just stuck to the copywriting, I mean, the one time I did follow a trend was just to spoof it, where I presented myself as being a famous figure. And then that did very well. Because I think a lot of people are tired of seeing the same type of threads over and over again. And then when I started as well, I thought long term on this, because you see a lot of people start, even build a decent audience, then stop. Whereas I thought, I'm going to try this for 2 years. Okay, I started October 2021, and I thought October 2023, I'm going to make a decision. And I just posted consistently every day, 3 times a day until then. And then I saw, hang on, I've built up a decent audience. This is working for me. So I'm going to stick with it.
I love that. Well, I kind of did the same thing with my YouTube channel and the podcast. I decided I'm going to do this for a year. I'm going to do it from July 2024 until the end of 2025. I'm going to set aside the budget for production and my team because producing videos requires some editing and I don't have the skill set to do that. So I'm going to put aside some budget. I'm going to put aside money to record videos and, create footage and stuff. And at the end of 2025, I'm going to make a decision. So same thing. And And actually very, very similar, because I was looking at the engagement for the first few months. I was like very, very focused on like, hey, I want to get a lot of views on this. I want to get a lot of subscribers. I was thinking of like really growing the account very, very quickly. And
Hmm.
I adjusted my approach a little bit, because I realized that, the kind of person I'm talking to is somebody that's actually very focused on copywriting and improving their skills. I'm not targeting beginners. I'm not targeting people that just want to make money online, make a quick buck without doing any work. So it's almost it's going to actually work against me to have 100,000 views, because as we both know, statistically, there's not 100,000 copywriters that are like all like seriously wanting to work very, very hard at this. There's actually a very small community of like serious internet marketers. There's a lot of fans of internet marketing that have floated around the space, that enjoy the space, but I would say that there's a lot less active writers. So I started to see it the same way, and I was like, I'm just going to stick to the message, going to focus on what I wanted to say, and I think it's been going well. I know we've got about, as of the recording of this, we're close to about 3,000 subscribers. So far so good. We got a nice core community of people following, and so yeah, I really resonate with that. And I think the other thing, Andrew, is like when you stick to the messaging that you have, there's also like brand integrity, because people will actually trust that because if you keep changing a message, like a lot of internet marketing, like maybe like BizOp coaches or BizOp gurus or something, they'll like change their like what they're pitching, and the core audience sees like, oh, you made this sound like the very, very best thing ever, but now like this month this is the best thing ever, and next month something else can be the best thing. So like you kind of know it's no longer the best thing, it's like one of the top 10 best things. So that's that I think weakens the trust that you have with your audience if you do that too often.
Yeah, that's it. I've always focused on the craft. That's my number one thing. I've never presented as a biz op or a make money thing. I rarely talk about the money. I don't think I've ever given like how much I've earned. It's always get better at the craft, and that's it. Because the better you get at the craft, the more value you can provide, and the more value you provide, the more you can get back in there. So that's something I've always focused on. And yeah, so I said, too many people, they focus on those vanity metrics, like how many likes do I get, how many reposts. And to start with, like when you start to get, it's exciting, when you get your first person clicking a like on something and then sharing and leaving a comment. But then of course you realise, hang on, these aren't the things that pay the bills. I need to look at kind of the second order analytics on there. What's my real goal? Is it getting subscribers, getting buyers, whatever it is? Those are the key things to focus on. And like I said, they can often be a polar opposite of just getting those big likes. Because,
I mean, yeah.
I'll say, because a gentleman recently asked me when I slated the Andrew Huberman type threads, and he said, well, it gives you traffic. And it does, but is it the right traffic? It's like, I've been in this long enough that, you can have 200, 300, 2 million people looking at something. But if they're not interested in what you're selling, it doesn't matter at all. The chances are that they might even be, ignoring you, blocking you, muting you. If they've signed up to your email list on the basis of something different to what you do, you're probably getting spam complaints and unsubscribes that you shouldn't be getting. You need to be more focused.
Yeah, that 100%. I mean, there's a lot of so just for context, like some of the clients I've worked with as a copywriter and as a consultant, they have offers that teach people how to make money online. So like mass market business opportunity offers. And one of the accounts I was working on had 500,000 Instagram followers, and they were at their peak of revenue. I think they were making about almost $2 million a month. Oh no, actually, let me correct myself. I think they were at like $700,000 a month or something like that. The exact numbers are not so important, but the thing is that they 4x their following, so they were at like 2 million now, but their revenue didn't 4x. Their revenue went up by like 35% or something. As far as I remember, it was like 2022. So either we were already at $1 million, and then we got to like 1.5. But I was like looking at the account, and this is why I remember this specifically, is I was looking at the account and I was like, we were almost making the exact same amount of money with 1/4 of the same subscribers. So like, is our content like even talking to the people that are actually buying anymore? Or are we just, pulling from the cracks between that? Because now we've got all these other people, but they're not buyers. Like, I mean, we could have grown the account by 100,000 subscribers instead of 1.5 million subscribers, and we might have got the exact same amount of sales. It's like, I don't really want to optimize for that. And I'm sure that on Twitter, if you have like a lot of followers and a very, very small engagement, it actually hurts the account in the long run as well. So like if you got an Instagram account that's got 2 million followers, and only 2,000 people are interacting with your posts, it's going to start hurting you after a long time. I'd rather have only 20,000 followers and have the same engagement, but the quality, and you get more sales like that if that's your goal. So I've noticed a lot of business coaches and a lot of personality brands and copywriters watching this, you need to look at this with clients, because clients will often focus on the vanity metrics, especially personal brands. Their priority, they sometimes think that like the reach equals growth for their personality because they're reaching more people. But your total addressable market's extremely small compared to what most people think it is. It's like there's a very, very small, we talk conversion rates in copywriting, right, Andrew? It's like, you said 14% earlier. That was like a massive success. And that's like 14%, so imagine your audience, you don't need millions and millions of people. It's a very, very small amount of people that buy.
Yeah, as I tell people, whenever people are upset, I can't post this, it might be pushing things a bit far. It's like, maybe 3% of your audience are going to buy ever. Most of them are never going to even think about it. So, don't worry about it. Just focus on those people who are going to buy. And everything should be about them. You can't try to appeal to a mass audience, because let's face it, most of the people we work for haven't got mass products. We're not selling McDonald's burger or a can of Coke to anybody. We're selling much more niche things. So yeah, you can't go wide with your appeal, really. Or like you said, you might triple your audience and your revenue stays the same.
Yeah, right. Or your margins actually go down, even though you're making more money, right? That's another thing, is like, I think with info marketing, I'm very curious to know your perspective on this, and if, like the kind of businesses you've worked with in this space. But I've noticed with info marketers, more recently, I'd say maybe they have a little bit less experience in the game. A lot of them have like made some money outside of direct response and then discovered our space and realized like, oh, I can sell information on the internet and make really, really good money. And then they start doing it, but their actual profit's actually quite low, especially like the high ticket coaches. They'll have like $100,000 a month funnel, and they'll have a sales team, and they'll have ad costs, and the ads is like 2.5 ROAS or 3 ROAS. Sales team's like 15%. Operations is like pretty high too. They end up with $25,000 a month profit from a $100,000 business. And the way that direct response used to work, I think, is much higher margins, and like you get a lot of that cash. So I'm curious, like your perspective on just like info marketing in general, like the way that people are building their businesses in the space. I think that a lot of people need to spend more time optimizing for the core audience, because I think that's where the profits is falling through. Because if you send 10,000 people down a funnel with very, very average copy that's very, very broad, not targeting your ideal customer, you're going to get problems like that, because you're going to have the sales guy on 20 calls when he only needs to be on 5 calls. You're going to have these better opt-in rates. You're going to have better opt-ins on your opt-in page, but you're actually bringing a lot of fluff into your funnel, and then you're going to get unsubscribes and complaints and spam and, stuff like that.
Yeah, certainly. It's almost surprised me a bit over the recent years with these people coming in and suddenly having sales teams. And I'm like, well, you shouldn't need a sales team when you're just starting out. That's crazy, especially if it is just a course. Even up to a couple of $1,000, that's easy enough to sell. It's possible to sell with good copy. We should really be only going $10,000 and over, I think, really, to really need a salesman. And even then, you don't necessarily need one. So yeah, I think people are. I think they're being almost, I don't say tricked, but maybe misled by some people, because people are making money off them by selling them this complete service. And it all sounds very professional. It sounds like a real business. We'll get you setters, we'll get you closers, we'll put all this in, we'll have a webinar funnel with your low ticket offer, all this building up here, your ascension thing. And it sounds really good to somebody who's made money in another business and has maybe, they've maybe got 100,000, like I said, to invest or whatever. They're nodding along. It all sounds good. Whereas, like I said, a lot of the older school direct response marketers, it was, even before a computer, it'd be like a keyboard and some paper and a few envelopes and stamps. And that was how they'd get started. And quite a few never really went beyond that. They might move up to having it professionally printed and stuff, but it never really goes far beyond that. So yeah, I think people are coming in at like the very high end of the business when they really need to be starting down low. And that'll teach them a lot more. It'll force them to actually optimize their opt-in page for people who actually want to buy, rather than just getting a big impressive number.
I mean, I've bought from several people I didn't need sales calls, and I've spent $20,000 without a sales call. If you're a good marketer and you're a good copywriter and you know how to like nurture, if you would use that word, or at least let's just say educate, like correctly educate your ideal customers, most of the time, if they trust you, they like you, they know you, and they know you're the authority. If you're the right person, then the offer makes sense. You don't necessarily need so many sales calls. So I think that there's a lot of that missing right now from the industry, especially over the last 3 years. You've been in the games for 16 years as of recording this. So I'm very curious, like what you've seen, or especially over the last few years, because over the last few years, a lot of people have been selling copywriting as like a get rich opportunity, which is very new. I wasn't like that when I got started. It was like a few people here and there, but now it's very big. Now there's like hundreds of thousands of people saying, oh, I mean, like, okay, for example, when I got started, when people would ask me, like, what do you do for work? And I'd say I'm a copywriter. They don't know what that is. I've been to 3 countries in the last 12 months, and I talked to like locals and people that aren't in our industry, and they all knew what copywriting was. And I thought that's very interesting. Like, people in the Philippines know what copywriting is. People in Japan, it's like, oh, what's copywriting? Oh, copywriter. Oh, okay, I know what that is. I'm like, how do you know what a copywriter is in Japan? And this is like crazy, And South Africans also know what copywriting is. So it's like, well, that's different. So many people know about it,
Yeah, when I started, I told people I was going to do copywriter. Only one person in kind of my entire friend and family circle knew what it was, and that was because he worked for a newspaper in the ads department of that. So it was his job. Other than that, people were like, copywriting, legal stuff.
Yeah, legal. Yeah,
that was the standard response to people. So I quickly learned to say I'm not a copywriter, I'm just in advertising, and that was.
I'm in advertising. Okay, that's good.
But yeah, it's become a massive biz op recently, with people making all sorts of crazy claims about what they make and what you can make if you learn from them. And then you see, as well as that, you got people like, oh, I'm now a copywriting coach. I've been doing this for a year. What? Like, hang on. It took me 2 years just to know what the basics were, and probably another 4 or 5 years to get mildly competent at them. You don't know anything after a year. It's just another biz op that's just trying to take people's money, and it's such a shame. And we can see that almost going to the next level now with AI.
Yeah. It's like now you don't even have to write the copy.
That's it.
You just press a button and make 10K, right? Just press this button and make 10K.
Yeah, it's moving towards the ultimate fantasy. Yeah, of that. And of course, it doesn't look like that at all. That's not the reality of things, no matter how many people try to tell you otherwise.
So, what do you think is the reality for somebody that's been, that's got started in the last few years? What do you think that they should keep in mind as they start this journey?
I think that what AI is doing, to focus on that, is it's raising the floor. Sorry. So what you maybe could have got away with a few years ago, you can't. A client can literally just go into Claude or ChatGPT or whatever and just bang in, type me a sales email about this. So you need to be getting better. And as well as, I think it's more important than ever to understand the bigger picture. It's like what we were just talking about, like not getting focused on the vanity metrics, like likes and things. You need to look further. And I think any copywriter now, they need to understand more marketing strategy.
Interesting.
And it's like if I'm teaching somebody from scratch now, I'm not even going to start focusing on copywriting or copy. We're going to look at the fundamentals of marketing, like the 40-40-20 rule, to make sure people understand the importance of your market you're selling to and the offer, what you're selling before we get into the copy. So they always have the big picture view and can see, this is where copy fits into things. But it's just one piece of the puzzle, maybe not even the most important piece for a lot of what we do. So, yeah, I tell people, look at the bigger picture, understand marketing strategy on there. Don't limit yourself. Yeah, just broaden your horizons. You're not an email copywriter, you're the list manager. Then you're not the list manager, you're the marketing strategist. So go up so you've got more higher leverage with everything.
That's interesting, yeah. Yeah, I think that's really good. I think a lot of people don't, like a lot of copywriters, they struggle to create controls and they struggle to create copy that converts because they're just writing words. They're not actually thinking about the offer. Like for example, one of the things I always notice this, whether it's AI emails or whether it's a copy, because I focus mostly on email copy when I got started. Now I write everything. Now I write VSLs as well, and ads and sales letters and landing pages and stuff. But I would say of all the things I've done, I'm probably 80% of it, or maybe 75% of it's been email copy. And I always see this in copy. Like with email copy, the marketing message is almost always missing from the email. And what I mean by the marketing message is the actual elevator pitch or the USP or like the big selling point, like basically like the headline you would use on an offer where sales page. Like it's always missing from the email. It's always like, and if you want to get, if you want to learn this really cool course, click here. Or if you want to buy this thing, click here. And if you want to go to the next level, click here. I'm like, no, that's not good enough. You need to have a marketing message. It's just like, and if you want to know how 355 dads all over, all over America have already dropped 20 pounds in the last 5 weeks, this is the page you need to go to right now. Click here. Like that is a clear marketing message. AI doesn't even do that sometimes. So,
No.
but that's not really a copy thing. That's like awareness of what the offer actually is to the market. And like, if you don't know what the offer is, you don't know what you're actually selling people, what they're actually clicking, the result that they're paying for, nothing else really matters. Like it doesn't matter what hook you use, doesn't matter what lead you use. You have to talk to them about what they really care about.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a lot of people getting this, and they almost don't like the idea that it's selling, that it is salesmanship in print. They like the idea it's writing, and you've even got people, I'm not selling, I'm helping. Copywriting is psychology. Copywriting is helping. It's like, no, we're salesmen at the end of the day. You can use all these nice terms, but we're there to sell, and you need to focus on that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And like I said, you need to know what you're selling. I mean, I'm the other way, I kind of specialise in longer form copy. As I tell people, I write those long sales letters no one ever reads. I write, the long sales pages. I write the long VSLs. And I critique a lot of people's work as well. And the common thing is, I don't know what they're selling. I've read the entire thing. I don't know what it actually is. So, well, is this a course? Is this coaching? What are you actually selling there? And it's astonishing. So, yeah, like you said, it all starts with research. I think you covered this in one of your recent videos. You've got to know what you're selling inside out, because it seems like there's even people now who sell stuff that they've not used or they don't have. Whereas I need whatever's being sold, I need it so I can literally dismantle it. If it's a digital product, I can go through every aspect of it in detail. If it's a physical product, let's just pull it to pieces. I want to know everything about it. And people don't do that. It's like if I'm selling my mouse here, then I would want to know, what's that wheel made of? What's the plastic thing? How many buttons are on it? What makes those buttons click? What's
nice.
The nerdy technical features? And what's inside it? I want to know every little detail like that to start with. And I think so many people miss out on that, so their copy feels very surface level from there. And then, once you've known that, you can then start converting it to benefits. You can find out if there's a story behind it. You can look if there's anything that makes it unique on that. You can see if there's a story behind any of the bits that make it up. And again, it's one of those fundamentals that I had hammered into me when I was starting out, but a lot of people seem to be missing. And then, of course, you need to do the same thing for your audience, who you're selling to. You need to know those people inside out. The better you know them, the better you can sell to. Because like you said, you've got to focus on what's important to them in your copy. Because kind of a counterintuitive point is your copy's not about what you're selling. Your copy's really about who you're selling it to. You can think of it as like a mirror on there. You're reflecting back there, you're showing them, you understand them and their problems, and you understand what they want. And so I'm going on it for a bit.
No,
and that's also
really
how
point,
you write good emotional copy. Because, again, it's one of those things where everyone will tell you, emotion sells. People buy on emotion and justify with logic. Then that's it. It's like almost no one ever tells you, well, how do I sell emotionally? And you look at some of these big VSLs and stuff, and they do a very forced emotion on you. Like, I woke up and the doctor said I'm going to need my legs chopping off. And, it's fine for certain offers, but most of the time you can't use that type of forced big emotion on there. And then no one tells you what it is. And in fact, on Twitter, when I asked a question, because I run a marketing challenge every week where I ask people a question, and I said, so how do you create emotion? Everyone says it's so important. And the number one answer I got, the overwhelming number one, was tell a story. I'm like, well, okay. I was hungry. I went downstairs, ate a sandwich. Now I'm not hungry. There's your story. But there's nothing emotional or interesting about that at all. Because stories aren't the secret to emotion. There's something deeper on there. And of course, the secret to emotional copy.
I was about to ask you. Yeah.
I didn't plan to be teaching this. This is too good for this. Can we cut this?
997 paywall.
Yeah, that's it. The secret to emotional copy is this. The more important something is to somebody, the more emotional it is. And that's what it is. The more important something is, the more emotional it is. Let me give you an example. This was the example I had it taught to me. Let's say you're selling a massager for the back thing. You see some sort of automatic thing. You put it on your back, it massages your back. Now, how do you sell that? Well, the obvious way is, what's the big benefits of it? Gets rid of your back pain, lessens your back pain. Maybe it's quick and easy to use. It lasts longer than others. Maybe it's even permanent pain relief, all those standard things. And you think, well, those are what the buyer wants. It's like, no, they're not. Because the person who buys that is over 60s, so it's the older audience. And what's important to them isn't curing their back pain, rather oddly, because they probably lived with it for a few decades, so they know this device is not magically curing their back pain. What's important to them is very simple. Two things. First is they want to play with their grandkids. And the second is they want to be able to get out of a chair without help. And now those are the... And then when you drill down, and that's what's important to them. And so instead of, cure your back pain, it's, play with your grandkids. And you have a photo maybe of someone like bending over with a little toddler or something, get out of a chair unaided. All those are things what's important. And now suddenly that's emotionally resonating. And notice there's nothing sleazy about that. There's nothing pushing. What I've done is almost the opposite of a lot of copy. Instead of kind of pushing the emotion onto somebody, I've evoked it. I've pulled it out of them on there. And that's how you write real emotional copy. You find out what's important to your audience. And the great thing is with the internet, it's easier than ever. People often go on places like Reddit or Facebook and write paragraphs over what's important to them. You can survey your list and ask people. You can get on calls and chat to them. And and so few people, they write copy that looks great on the surface, but it's just off the top of their head. It's like, oh man, cure your back pain in less than 24 hours with this device. It's easy to use. It stores everywhere. It comes with a rechargeable battery, all the standard stuff. And, and then somebody else can come in and say, play with your grandkids again. And whoa, it's night and day difference. Because, too many people, it's just what I call surface level, off the top of their heads. Because I could probably write something that sounded pretty good. Because, I know the structure. I know what basic appeals to use, but unless I got to know who I was selling to, it could never really be that powerful. And I think that can even trick clients, because a lot of clients don't really know their audience. So again, a lot of copywriters are like, I have a questionnaire sent to my clients. I've never gone for that approach, because often your clients don't know, especially if they're not in the direct response business. They don't know all of these things that you want to know, or they're guessing. Even worse, they tell you, but they're only guessing. They don't really know on there. Whereas, you need to go and do your research, and you need to know exactly who you're selling to. And then, I'm going on again, sorry. And then, of course, you've got all these courses. They teach you that. And then it's almost separate from the copy. It's like, well, here's your avatar you've written, or your persona, whatever word they use. And then it's ignored, It's like, oh, well, we'll get the age of your prospect. Okay. Are they married or single? Okay, got that down. And now we've got all that. Let's write the copy. And it's never referred to again, ever. That's... I bet there are copywriters writing this who don't know. For example, why should you know if your clients, if your prospect's married or single? What difference does that make in your copy? I bet there's thousands of copywriters who've never even thought about that, who couldn't answer the question, but they've written an avatar with it on.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's a lot of that stuff. There's like a lot of, because I used to fill in like a demographic paper, for like the biz op market, and it'd be like, okay, we're talking to 25 to 35-year-olds. In this type of job, they live in this place in America. And it's like, well, what do you really do with that information? Well, it starts to become a little different once you realize what's most important to them. Because the reason that somebody in their 40s might become a copywriter is not to become a millionaire and drive a Lamborghini. It might be the fact that they don't get to pick their daughter up from school because they work in a 9-to-5 job, right? So it's like, but the 18-year-olds don't care about that. The 18-year-old doesn't want to pick their daughter up from school. The 18-year-old doesn't want to go to university and be forced into a career that they don't want. They want independence from their parents. They have a very different reason. So the same sales page for an 18-year-old may have like Rolexes and like a fancy car to amplify that desire to be independent and do whatever you want. It's not going to work on somebody that's in their like mid-40s that just wants to be with their kids, So yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I'm annoyed you've stolen my example there.
Oh
But yeah,
dear.
he said, if it's for someone in the, a young man, it's the cars, it's the babes, it's the watches. When they're older, it's I want to spend time with my family. I want to, give my kids the best upbringing I can. Then another 10, 20 years on, it's, oh, I'm a little worried about my retirement. Now you need to be working about that.
Nice.
And, similarly, because I've mentioned, I suppose I better answer it. If somebody's single, it's like typically what they're more interested in is status. Whereas if they're married, they're more interested in security. So there. But yeah, if you don't know these things, then almost creating an avatar, like you write out all the demographics, is worthless.
It's a really good point, because like if you say, like to go back to the original example that we were talking about, like the back pain, right? If you have one market, let's say that the market is all in chronic pain, it's chronic pain, then maybe you do talk about the fact that like, wow, I didn't feeling like I'm having a second youth here. But to the market you were talking to in the 60s, it might be like I don't know, maybe the headline for like a story lead could be like, sorry dear, like grandpa has to rest for a little bit, his knees are sore, or like his back's sore. And it's like you start with that. I like it'd be a lot stronger than, are you tired of having back pain? Do you feel like every single day when you wake up your back hurts? Like, it's just very weak. There's a lot of copy speak. I think that's what's happened over the last few years. Like, it has I don't know what the right word is for it, but because I'm a copywriter and I don't know what word to use here, but it has like remnants of copy. It feels like copy. You can see that it's styled like maybe some direct response old sales letters. It has that sales sound to it, but when you read it, it's very, very empty. It's very, very lacking. It's got no real substance behind it. And you were talking about how you can sell emotionally. If you once you say the thing that's most important to them, then you could put that in the story. Then a story could create a lot of emotion, but without that piece, it's not going to be so emotional. It might just be like a chronology of events, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've used the word empty words for it's like empty calories, but empty words for writing. And I blame Joe Sugarman for this. Maybe unfairly, but I imagine if most people watching this are going to be familiar with Joe Sugarman and the Adweek Copywriter's Handbook, classic book, and they're going to be familiar with this piece of advice he gives. I'll ask you, what's the purpose of the first line of copy? Exactly. What's the purpose of the second line? And so
to
on.
Get to the read the third, yeah.
Exactly. The trouble is, some people have taken that literally. And so there's no content other than to get the person to read the next line. And you often see it on social media, people showing off like, oh, you've read this line, now you've read this line, can you see what I'm doing? Yeah, you're showing off with a writing technique. Yeah, that's not going to work. So as a result of that, yeah, I think people have taken that on board because it sounds easy to do. It's a good piece of writing, but they're missing the sales content. Like you said, it's too shallow. It needs to be that kind of. And then going back to the point, like you said, with the back massager, there are different markets, and a lot of copy is too general, too generic. As again, you need to decide exactly who you're selling to. Because, like I said, my market. Or the example I gave was the over 60s, and you said the chronic pain sufferers, but it could be professional athletes who are needing something like that. It could be amateur athletes. It could be people recovering from an injury. There are so many little different markets, and it's almost always a good idea to target your messaging specifically at the audience you've got. And as well as that, you might not know that when you're starting out because you've generally got two audiences. There's the audience you think you're selling to, and there's the audience you're actually selling to. And kind of as the marketer, it's your job to kind of move those together as close as you can. And there's always surprises in there. You need to be finding out who is actually buying your product. And yeah, I think you'll almost always be surprised at who is buying it when you thought, for example, on Twitter or X, now to horrible term, I thought I was mainly appealing to fellow freelance copywriters. That was my audience. But it turns out most of the people I've done business with from that are business owners. They're not fellow, freelance copywriters, they're business owners. So, yeah, it was interesting to know that out.
Pleasant surprise, yeah.
It is. At first, I was disappointed because I thought I knew what I wanted to target and I'm not doing it. And then, of course, I realised, don't be stupid, Andrew. If these people want to give you money, let them.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. I'm not going to stop them. Yeah. I think that the upgrade then maybe what we can make to that or maybe the updated version of that line is, what's the purpose of the first sentence? It's to get your ideal prospects. It's to get only your ideal prospects to read the second line. In fact, it should chase everybody else away. Chase all the non-prospects away. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think that's a stronger way to put it. Definitely, it's got to appeal. It's got to appeal to them, being in their interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gotta sound like something that they actually want. You know what's interesting is I actually have on my Facebook, because I post quite a lot on Facebook. I show a few people this when they start working with me. So I'm spilling a secret here. Is people like, how do you grow a presence and how do you grow a bit more of a brand? Whether it's for yourself or whether it's for clients, because I work with, personality brands and stuff. And I say, you just got to talk to the target audience, like be clear about it. And there's obviously lots of different ways to do it. For copywriters, it's actually pretty straightforward. I just use the word copywriting or copywriter within the first two sentences almost always. Or like something that only copywriters will resonate with. Like when you're writing that email on Google Doc or something like that, that might be something I'll say as well. But I'll literally show them my Facebook profile. I'm like, let's just have a look right now. Let's look at this. And I'll scroll every post within the first two sentences. You can see the word copywriter.
Yeah.
And I could get more creative for sure. I could use other stuff, but everybody likes it that way. They like it. They like the fact that I'm talking to them, and I think that, yeah, you just, you do this. Now, what about, I actually have one more, Andrew. I have one more actually perfect example, because you were talking about how you might actually think you know the audience, but it's not. I was writing for a BizUp offer through one of my private clients a while ago, and it was for some way to make money online or something. And I thought this like the VSL looked very like 25-year-old to 30-year-old to the market. Turns out it's the 60-year-old woman. That's like 75% of the market. I couldn't believe it. I was like 65-year-old women are actually the ones buying this. Yeah. And it's like, well, there'd be so many changes that we could make to this to optimize for that market, since those are the people actually buying this. Like, I can't imagine how many ways we could change the lead, the style of the VSL, the wording, everything could change completely if we actually knew that was our audience. Easily, probably double the conversion rate, So, yeah, and people buy for different reasons too, right? Like I had a client that was targeting women in their 30s with BizOp as well, actually, and they don't buy the same way. It's like they won't just buy because they want to make money and they have all these like self-focus. A lot of the time the motivation is, I'm not buying this to make money for myself. I'm buying this to help my family. I'm buying this for my kid. I'm buying this so that I can be a better mom, And once we shifted that messaging, instead of saying like, if you're ready to make, 10K a month and change your life and click this link, it became, go ahead. This is for you, but it's also more importantly for your family. You're doing this for them too.
Yeah.
If you want to help them and you want to step into that place where you can support just as much and you can be there for your kids like I have been over the last 5 years, click here and I'll show you how to do it. And all these other, ladies were all cheering you on and we're all ready to see you on the other side. Like, it's so much better. It's such a better message. But copywriters can underestimate this in the first 2 years in the game, 3 years,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that immediately felt so much more emotional and so much better to me than the generic version. And yeah, I've even seen a few people say, "Oh no, don't just call out your audience or make it clear who it's for, because it can look a bit cheap and obvious." And in a way, yeah, they're right, it does. But it also works. People like to know something's for them. If you can make it clear that, knowing how old your audience really are and stuff's vital, because, I mean, something I don't see many people talk about, I'm about to go off on a semi-tangent here again.
I'm ready. I got my pen.
It's a technique I've not seen many people teach, and I think it should be more widely known, I'm going to give it a name. I was never given it. No one ever taught me a name for it. So it's what I'm going to call a demographic timeline. Okay, demographic timeline. And what that means is that when you know how old your audience is, you go back when they were born. Let's say, for example, I'm going to take my dad, 1947. He was born. And then you plan out their life every 5 years and you write what was going on in the country at that time, what was going on in the world at that time. So, for example, when my dad grew up, like as a young boy into a teenager, we still had rationing going on from the end of the Second World War. They were like playing in the dugouts and the bomb shelters and that type of things. And then as he becomes a teenager and a young man, it's the 60s. Suddenly we've got the Beatles, Beatlemania takes over all these bands. And then, of course, by the end of the decade, 1969, he's watched the moon landing live. And you see, those from like kind of the teenagers to the 20s, those are the people that shape him. Those are his cultural references. That's what he knows. So if I'm writing copy, I can mention those things, those cultural references, and then it'll resonate much stronger to show that I understand him. And, that I understand him. basically. Whereas, let's say we were to do that exercise for me. Now, I was born 1979. So Beatlemania, yeah, it's something I heard about, but I didn't experience, obviously I didn't experience it. Similarly, the moon landing, I've seen it on TV, but I didn't watch it live. I didn't get the excitement or how groundbreaking it was. It's like, most of mine are pretty sad when I think about it. It's like the first Mario game was released, the game talking about Street Fighter 2 in the playground. And, it was then in the 90s, we had like Blur and Oasis, the big Britpop years there that were gaining throughout my teenage years, and that type of thing you talk to me about, it resonates with me. And again, you mention those to my dad, and yeah, he'll have heard of them, maybe, but they don't mean anything to him. So it's good to go back and create that timeline for your prospects so you understand their world and you can use the references that they'll get. And that, again, helps make your copy more powerful because it's showing you understand what's important to them. And that's a level thing most things don't do.
So you can't... So Andrew, what you're telling me is I can't, make $1,000 in just 30 minutes. I actually have to do some research and actually learn a little bit about product, what I'm selling. Really? I thought this was easy.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. If you want to get really good, that's what you need to do. And
oh no.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of work, but I've always focused on the craft. Get as good as you can at that. I'm not going to tell anyone. It's quick and easy work. It's not. It's hard. And like I said, there's a lot more than we can do, like on the prospect side. There are so many little things you can look into to more fully understand them. And the better you understand them, the better the copy you can write. And then, of course, you've got to do that for the product, as we talked about earlier. Or take it to pieces, know the history of it, know why the founder came up with it, or know, every last detail about it. And then you've got to do the same for your competitors. Because, you're never selling in a vacuum, are you? And if you think you are, or if your client insists he is, oh man, you've got an uphill battle then, because there's always competition, and you don't want to end up saying the exact same thing as everybody else on there, or you just blend in and you've forgotten. So again, I share another little research trick for you don't see many people talking about. It's like you want to find your top 5 to 10 competitors on there, and then you go into like your Word or your spreadsheet or whatever you want to use, and you make a table. And you put your competitors' names along the top, and then down the side, you put things like what's the headline they're using, what promise are they making, what proof have they got, what's the offer, what's the guarantee, all those various elements. And then you fill that in. And then when you fill that in, you will have an instant overview of the market. You can see at just one glance what everyone is doing. And so you can start to look at what are they not saying, and you can look for that gap in the market. That's an incredibly easy to do and powerful way of checking your market.
Just takes time again, I just thought it was so easy. So I think it's a good thing, like the fact that it actually requires work. Like when you go and explain that process, suddenly I don't feel so threatened by AI. You know what I'm saying? Like suddenly when you tell me, you actually have to do this, and you got to learn this, and you got to study the competitor, and you got to look at what the product actually sells. You got to break it down. You got to understand why. You got to also know about the market and the specific psychographics and like where they're at and the demographic timeline. Suddenly I can't just put a prompt into AI and expect this magic to come out of it. And even if you did, you would still have to cross-reference that with all of your research. And that's, I think, the biggest thing for me is like, personally, I can't get AI to write anything for me for my own personal brand because it doesn't know my story unless I feed it my stories, and it doesn't usually write in the way I want it to write yet. I've tried it, but and it's the same with many clients. Like I've tried to use AI to write for my clients. It can massage my copy. It can tighten sentences. It can expand on core ideas or headlines I already have and leads I already have. But I'm coming up with the headline. I'm almost always coming up with the lead. I already know what benefits I'm leaning into. I already know how I want to close it. So the prompt is very much like a copy chief to a junior copywriter. It's not really like a junior copywriter asking AI to be the copy chief. And I think that once you realize that AI can be used as a support, not as your super brain, it just supports you like a junior copywriter would. I think a lot of copywriters are going to have a very good time. In fact, I think 2025, 2026, some of the best time ever to actually be in this industry, because you have this powerful word processor that you can literally sit with and help you come up with lots of ways to flesh out ideas. But you also have more available information than ever before, right? Like when we got started, you got started back in 2009. I mean, when I started, we didn't have that many courses either. It's not like, 2017, we had a lot of stuff from AWAI, which is where I got in. Actually, I bought one of their courses. But most stuff was pretty expensive, I'd say. Like the barrier of entry was quite high. And, just the space was a lot smaller, whereas now it's a lot bigger. There's a lot more stuff available for free. I'd love to know your take. Before we wrap up here, I'd love to know your take on like where you think the industry is going. I know you said already that copywriters need to expand their skill sets and like move into positions where they're carrying more of the sales responsibility in the company, right? Like you're doing more stuff. But what else are you seeing that's becoming really popular, and where you think copywriters should focus their energy?
I mean, kind of to go back to a point you just said, how I like to think of AI at the moment is it's a calculator. It's the equivalent of a calculator, for maths. You still need to know what you're doing. If you don't know maths and that calculator, you can look impressive with it, but you don't really know what it's doing. It's like I could probably get a CAD program or something that could design a bridge. But, would you want to walk over a bridge I'd designed just because a computer said yes? Or do you really want a civil engineer who knows all the load-bearing things, who knows to check everything? There's no competition. I wouldn't walk across a bridge I'd designed or fly in a plane I'd designed, no matter what anything else said, You still need experts there. So, I think it's difficult to predict the future and exactly what's going to happen, but I would always just focus on getting good, just get as better as you can, because that's always worked for me. No matter what changes have come in the market, just get better and better and better. And I said, too many people have gone into the biz op. It's like they've never even read copy, which, like I said, I came into copy through reading the adverts, and to me it's mind-blowing. It's like someone turning up at like a football game for their first. I've heard people can become millionaires playing football. Hang on, what's this? Well, that's the ball. Never seen one before, That's blatantly ridiculous. It's insane. But that's what people do in this market. One of the things I normally ask people when I talk to them is I'll ask them the fundamentals of the craft. Do you know reason why copy? And I've spoken to people who've had 2 or 3 years experience and they're shaking their heads. I'm like, you've got no knowledge of the craft, It's like, you're familiar with the 40-40-20 rule? Of course, if you don't know, then the rest of this will be taken up with me shouting at you. There.
It's all for audience copy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said it's these people not knowing the basics of the craft.
Yeah, I think that's because they're learning from people. I mean, it's not a bad thing that they're getting introduced to the space from somebody else. I just think I think that you're handicapping yourself if you don't know the fundamentals. Like the core stuff is actually what gives you the thinking principles to actually make good marketing decisions.
Every week on Twitter, I post what I call the Fundamental 5, which I think are the 5 things most beginner copywriters should focus on. Benefits, proof, research, specificity, and clarity. And I want to hammer that home because those are the things I see lacking from people's work. And then, of course, underneath, almost every week, someone's going to comment, 0.6 emotion. And I'm like, well, actually, the emotion's in the research, as we discussed earlier, so I don't like to separate that out. It also leads to occasionally sleazy copy with that. So, yeah, those are kind of the 5 points that I want people to focus on and fully understand. And they recently, even benefits, what I would describe as maybe the most basic thing you learn, I don't think people are properly understanding them. And
the difference between a feature versus a benefit, for example.
Yeah, that's it. Surely the first thing any copywriting book tells you is that.
Yeah, that's the first thing I ever learned. Like lesson 1, what's the difference between feature and a benefit? Yeah.
That's it. And especially, almost every book uses the same example of the air conditioning system. The air conditioning is the feature, staying cool is the...
Yeah. I actually also had an air conditioning one. Okay, so I know where my courses got their... I know where my first course found their information then. I thought that was unique to them. I was like, oh, that's a really good example. They must have just... found it in some book. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. See, I've read pretty much everything. I've been through, I just consume knowledge. So yeah, I see the same things cropping up again and again.
I think a lot of these guys these days, they can get away with like 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10 copy because their personality carries a lot of the sale. And that's okay. I think that's cool. I think that the best part of it is the opportunity for copywriters because like we were talking about earlier, you got this personality brand, they got a sales team. They got a very expensive ad budget. They have a very, very copy paste from some guru. They have a funnel that they copy pasted from maybe a ClickFunnels funnel hacking swipe file or something. or more recently, some other gurus that are creating new funnel types and stuff. But you take all that stuff and you actually just pay somebody, let's say like, maybe yourself, or me, maybe like, let's say $25,000 to $50,000 to like rewrite the entire funnel. This suddenly you don't have a sales team that's like, you have a sales team that gets a third of the calls and they're all qualified because you just have good copy. And I think it's such an opportunity for copywriters today to come in. You can come into a business, almost any of these businesses right now that have like a need for copy, and you can blow them away if you actually love the craft, because the barrier is lower than ever before. But the quality, I'd say, around in general in the industry, I'd say copy has gone a lot down. I've also noticed like people don't learn copy directly anymore. I don't know if you also got a lot of experience maybe in the early days with like a copy chief or like having somebody reviewing your work. But for me, I like learn directly from somebody. I got a lot of direct feedback constantly. And I think it's, for me, I needed that. I think most copywriters I've worked with needed that direct feedback. And so I just don't see it as much with newer copywriters these days. They don't get that. They just get theory and then they have to try to figure it out. So if yeah, actually, did you get like a copy chief or good copy coaches to review your stuff in the early days?
Yeah, as I was talking through my story, I was thinking, what should I mention? And yes, I kind of mentored under Ray Edwards there for a year. And so, I would say I learnt the craft from him, but I was incredibly stubborn and I decided I didn't like his style of copywriting. But I took his feedback when he'd look at my copy. I mean, that was a big boost to me in the early days. It was knowing that, oh, yeah, this is good, But yeah, I think it pays in that way, I'll have to admit, I've always been more of a theory learner. I'm the book nerd. I'll dive into that. But yeah, I think recently, like you said, it's because of places like YouTube, you type learn copywriting and suddenly people like watch a couple of Kyle Milligan videos and bam, they're done. And then, that's it. Or a couple of Matthew Volkwin videos and bam, suddenly they're...
I hope that's not the end of it. I hope that they're not an expert after. And then they're putting like on their CV, like, mentored by 8-figure copywriters, something like that. It's like, yo, you watch 3 of my videos, and it's like, that's just high level perspective. If they want to go deeper and they want to learn from you, because you're sharing a lot of stuff on X right now, every single day, you're still sharing value on X every day, right? So
yeah. Well, in fact, while we've been talking, there should have been a post scheduled to go out with some.
Okay, there you go.
People should hopefully have found value, and I'll go and answer the comments on it. But, so still trying to put out value.
So if someone wants to learn from you, they must find you on Twitter then, Andrew.
I know you're trying to pitch me. I'm gonna shelf up. I'm gonna go back a second there. And
you're gonna shuffle away.
Yeah,
okay.
Because that is something I realise is that what you want to do with on social media, going back to one of the very first things you asked me how I grew on it, is this: you don't want to spend all your time on it. It's too easy to get sucked into that social media network, for want of a better thing, spending all your time on there. Whereas as soon as possible, you want to be using like schedulers, however you want to pronounce it, to post your stuff automatically so you don't need to be there. And you need to like set out a set amount of time every day you're going to engage with people and reply, because it's too easy to, every few minutes, somebody replied, has somebody done this? What's going on? And you end up wasting your time on there. You've got to be more disciplined with it. And again, this always goes back to what we were talking about. Treat it as a business. What are your business goals from this? If you're investing your time in it, what are you getting out of it? And then to go on to where I am on Twitter, I'm, X sounds like some sort of cool name from the 90s or something. It's really not suitable for a global brand like Twitter, I don't think. But you can find me at Andrew Wright Copy on Twitter.
Andrew Wright Copy, okay.
On there, it should be Wright's Copy, but it's like there was one letter too many for the letter limit, so I had to drop the S off on it, so it sounds a bit odd. But
that sounds cool though. Andrew Wright Copy, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the crazy thing is I don't even really have an offer on there or even offer anything anymore, because I said the original reason I started was I thought these are beginners, I can sell them coaching. I can maybe even pull back from client work a little bit, and then the client work suddenly took off, and I think unless you're going to go all in on it, you can make a lot more money doing the work than I can teaching
I agree
the work.
With that. Big time. Mm-hmm.
So I'm not even really pushed any of my coaching options or anything. I don't want anyone out of the blue to contact me and say, can you teach me? I want people, if they do, they need to have read my content for a long time, resonate with my approach, and then decide that maybe I could help them.
I like that. Well, that sounds good. I think that as well. I think a lot of these guys that sell courses, that how to make money from copywriting, especially the young guys that I don't even know if they've been in the game for more than 2 or 3 years. Like, yeah, maybe they're making money from it because they're coaches and they got like a big brand. But I've actually for most of my career made more money from client work than coaching. Only recently, I've had more availability for coaching, and I just decided to spend more time in the last year. Of the last 8 years, I spent only the last year really going completely full time with coaching. And until last month, I was actively writing for clients. In fact, I'll probably close a new client this month just because I'm getting itchy to write some more copy again. So I'll probably get another client, but I just can't not be writing copy for clients. It's just so much more profitable in my experience as well, because you get such a good deal. And you get a deal like you could charge somebody $15,000 to write funnel copy. And if you know the market, it's actually very straightforward to write that copy because you know the market, whereas with coaching, there's a lot of responsibility on you to actually help people to get a certain result. And it's like, I actually much prefer the installation of a business that makes $10 million a year. They have the funding to give me $15,000. Whereas if I get, let's say, 5 people at 5K, that might be their whole life savings. There's a lot of pressure, so.
Yeah, that is something I've been thinking about. It's like I've been charging, and everyone tells me this is too low, $300 an hour for one-on-one coaching on there. And even though, people charge a lot more, I'm still thinking that's a lot of money for a normal person to actually invest in spending an hour just chatting with me. It's like, $300 they're like, you should be charging. I'm like, I don't even then know if they're going to do anything with the information. I don't just want to give it to someone to collect. So I think I had that little bit of feeling of guilt, like, am I really helping anybody doing this? I probably need to put something better together for them to try to help these people, because that's what I say I'm going to do, but I don't think I'm really helping anybody at $300 an hour. There's a few people, I've walked through their sales page with them and helped them improve it, but I mean, this is a terrible thing to admit. It's like, and you always got the thought, I'm not even that good. I don't think I can do that. I'm not good enough for this. And then I see the kid, I've been doing this for 7 months now. I can teach you how to master copy.
Master copywriting.
It's like I need to be there to counter these people on there. And then it's like you said, when you can get paid, I mean, like my standard fee for a VSL or long form sales pays $35,000 up front plus royalties. It's like, yeah, exactly. I don't take a project if I don't think I'm going to make 100,000 at least from it.
I love it. Yeah, that's perfect. And then you have all that time and bandwidth to actually sit there and think about it too, instead of like, charging $5,000 and then you're just producing every single week a new VSL. I'm with you, man. Like I would, so when I got started, I would charge about about $100, I think, for about an hour of coaching. Back when I started coaching in 2020, $100. And okay, I think that's quite affordable. But then it moved up. It moved up to, $200, and then got to like $250. And I was chatting with an internet marketer who's pretty successful, and he's a millionaire copywriter and email marketer. And he's like, yeah, you need to charge $500. And I was like, yeah, I should, But then I looked at it and I'm thinking, now somebody that's making $2,000 a month, that's like their total income, and they're looking to get, it's like, yeah, maybe I could charge $500, but that's difficult. That's a stretch for somebody. If they were to do a one-on-one a week, which I think is the minimum if you want to like seriously, get really, really good with a coach, and you're paying your entire income to somebody. It's a lot of money. Maybe it makes sense if you're at 10K a month, but then it's like, well, when I coach somebody, when I'm consulting, I consulted somebody a year ago, they pay me $1,000 an hour, 1 call a week for 6 months. It's like, it's a drop in the bucket, and we made like probably an extra $2 million together because of that. So it's like, well, where should I focus my time? So all of these, if you're a copywriter and you're thinking like, how can I make more money? I don't think you have to become a copy coach. I think you can make a lot more money from doing for example, what Andrew's doing here, right? I mean, you said you're charging like $30,000. Is there also
$35K up front?
Is there a royalty as well potentially in those deals usually? So,
yeah, always. Again, most of the companies I'm working for are big direct response publishers. They already have it built in.
Yeah, there you go, right? Yeah. If you want to get to the next level, like don't think about, I'm at 10K, I'm stuck, let me go and coach copywriters. It's like you just need to get into the right circles with bigger names and bigger brands. Like, one or two of those deals could be worth 6 figures, and then you're set. Like, just get better. Just get better, get better, get better.
That's it. It's the wrong audience they're targeting, and they're not good enough. And I think a lot of people have a hard time admitting they're not good enough. on there, because again, this is something I didn't cover in my story. I gave you the truncated version. It's like I was a professional athlete for like a decade, not a very high level one, arguably not even a very good one, but it kind of taught me what you need to win. And you can apply that, and you see a lot of people who've done well in this space are people who've had success in another field, so they know how to bring it. And you've got a lot of these other kids who don't really, they hit a certain level, and that's it for them. Whereas, if you want to make money as a copywriter, you need to write for clients who can pay you a lot of money, and that's the secret. That's
the actual secret is work with bigger businesses and get to the level where you can actually deliver for those kinds of people the results that they're paying you for.
Yeah, it's like Healthy Directions have paid me, a lot of money because they can do. If I was writing for someone down the road who'd come up with some amazing thing, he can't pay me a lot.
So let me pitch you. So if you want to learn from from Andrew, go and follow him on Twitter or X at Andrew Write Copy. It's really been a pleasure chatting with you, man. I learned a lot of really, really interesting stuff from you, like a great perspective on how you've seen the space, and it's also really nice to get some of the confirmation, like some of the things I've been focusing on is like the right direction, because obviously I'm quite new to the industry and learning a lot of stuff on the way, and I'm gonna raise my rates. I need to get to $35,000 per VSL. That'd be a cool goal I'll put on my wall for a year or two from now. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll chat with you soon.
Most welcome. It's been great chatting with you, Matthew. Thank you. Have a great week.
Yeah, you too. Take care.